Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Just Say It. I am super, super excited that I have my first guest. I just want to first of all thank everybody for listening to the podcast and following thus far. I have had so much incredible feedback from everybody, and I'm just excited. So, my guest today is Herbert Wilkerson. I'm happy to have him. I have had like so many girlfriends and friends and my sisters. We always talk about certain things, and we find ourselves saying, "Oh, I wish I could ask a guy this, and I wish I could get this from a guy and this kind of advice." So he is the guy today. So we got like a bunch of questions we're going to ask, and I think we got a good guy to answer these questions. And he also happens to be a licensed professional counselor. So things might get a little clinical, but that's good because we need all of this. We need all of that. So that just brings me to the topic. Today, the topic is going to be questions women want a man to answer. So thank you so much for being on, Herb. I'm so glad that we get to talk. I'm super excited.
Well, thank you for having me. And I will preface this by saying I'm not an expert at relationships. I've been married 12 years, but that does not make me an expert. I know that I am challenging to be married to at times. and I'm a counselor, so I'm going to come from a clinical approach as well. So like she said, it will get clinical, but I think that's okay. We need that.
Good, good. I want to give a special thanks to the ladies who have given the questions. There's some big questions, Herbert. Like they're gonna be some heavy. Some of them are heavy, some of them are not as heavy. But the ladies came with the real questions. Like I got questions from the time I asked. I think I asked about 30 people, and I got like a little under that. But I got questions all day yesterday, all night. Woke up in the middle of the night reading. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. So it's super excited.
I don't mind saying I don't know. So
good.
I will not be able to answer everything.
Okay.
I can't. I will say I don't know. So yeah, I'm good with
that. Okay, we're fine with that. Let me just say this also. I got a bunch of, like I said, I got a bunch of questions, a mix of different ones, and some of the ladies, I got to just say this real quick. Some of the ladies had some questions that were kind of crass, and I can't really like some of the questions that I couldn't really share because they had some real questions that I'd rather not. Some of them I filter like, okay, I'm not going to ask him to say that. And the others I'm like, okay, he's married. I'm not going to ask that. But I have to say that my mother is listening, so I couldn't ask some of them. So I just have to say that. Some of them are for like a whole nother episode. Some of them for a whole nother show. So I had to take, I'm just going to tell you guys that now. I had to take some out. And I know some of the women, because I told them, tune in because I'm going to have your question aired and blah, blah, blah. Some of them, I couldn't.
Yeah, my virgin ears can't be hearing that stuff.
So dang. So that being said, I did have to take a couple of those out. I also wanted to say this real quick. There was someone who kind of wrote in to me yesterday when I told them what the topic would be. And bless her heart, God love her. She's so sweet. She wrote in and she asked why the podcast so far has not been very spiritual. I guess knowing like my relationship with God and my position in the church and how I love Jesus and I love church. I love God's people. That part is very important to me. However, I have to say, and I want to say this with all due respect because I respect her. Sometimes I feel like in church with churchy type people, we tend to think that everything is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And a lot of people in the church have a lot of Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike questions, and nobody's asking them, nobody's answering them. And then we're acting like we don't have these questions. So everything that I present is not going to be that spiritual because we need a spin on things that we don't necessarily address or we're afraid to address or we don't want to bring it up. So I just had to say that. I love her and I care, but everything is not going to be super spiritual.
Hey, I was listening to this guy follow Kevin on stage in this podcast one day, and they were talking about having topics like this and, church people tuning in. Mm-hmm. He's like, the church I grew up in, had a ton of kids in the youth department, and there wasn't that many couples in the church. Somebody was having sex.
Somebody, somebody
Yep. Sounds about right.
was doing something other than reading the Bible.
Yeah. So yeah. Right,
Okay.
We can dive into it. I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, so this first question, we definitely couldn't avoid this. The first question is gonna fall under the topic entanglement. We cannot talk about relationships without talking about Jada and the Fresh Prince of Despair, honey. We got to just get in it. Okay, so let me just ask this first question. So the first question is the marriage strong and united just because a man says there is nothing you can do to make me want to leave you? Will Smith, his exact words were, there's nothing you can do to make me want to leave you. Also, he said there are no deal breakers. He said this came with them redefining their relationship and turning their marriage into a life partnership. So I don't know, because you're married, I guess, I don't know. Is that crazy, or like there's nothing you can do to make me want to leave you? Like, what's the point of a commitment if it's...
I'm not one for absolutes. All right.
Okay.
Absolutely yes, absolutely no. There's a lot of gray area. There's room for gray area. And every relationship is unique to themselves. Will and Jada, I don't know them. I don't know if I can therapize them. And I think, if you think about just Will Smith and his personality, just from what you've seen in his music or movies or whatever, it seems kind of consistent with his personality, like to think like that. Like, he seems like a very, like, all the way in individual. Nothing can shake if he feels a certain way. And so I don't know. I saw a video with them once, and they were talking about happiness. All right. And one of the things they talked about, I guess, a takeaway from their relationship is that each person in the relationship is responsible for their own happiness. And Jada had a good talk about that. Like, if you give the other person a charge for your happiness, then you're taking that control away from yourself and making it solely their responsibility. And you put them in a position to meet needs that they're not equipped to meet, because your happiness is your responsibility.
Absolutely.
They talked about how they did that. Like, for him, it was, I build this big house, I show you off, I do all these different things, trying to give her his version of happiness. And she ended up talking about, like, but those aren't things that I value, or this house feels like a prison or whatever, because it was functioning on his happiness. And she was like, I had to go out and find the things that was meaningful to me. Like, she talked about, like, family barbecues and picnics and reunions and holidays and things like that being very, very important to her. And he was like, and those are things that drive me crazy. Like, he's adventurous, wants to go do all these, like, daredevil type things or whatever, which is stuff she's not into. And so they spoke to their compromise being like giving each other the space to do those different things and not stand in the way. But she go along with him, and then he go along with her, because that makes her happy. So, okay, I can do that. And then this makes you happy. So she's like, I can do that. And them striking that balance. Now, this was before we knew about the August situation. So I don't know how much that changes people's views, but I think when you take it at his word in the moment, that's really important. Because your happiness is your responsibility. Now, can I contribute to your happiness? Can I take away from your happiness? Absolutely. Like, my choices still matter. My behavior still matters. But ultimately, your happiness is your responsibility. And sometimes we'll go into situations trying to make them meet our needs, and we'll use manipulative tactics to do so. And we can be communicating out of past hurt, past trauma, or whatever, to communicate the need of, well, this is what I need to be happy, without directly saying it, or even knowing what you need in order to be happy. So I don't know how much that answers the question, because I mean it's so much up for speculation. Like I watched the video, it was weird,
For
ride
sure.
together, die together, bad marriages for life. I'm like,
What's the point of getting married if you're like, it's gonna be anything goes, no matter what you do, I'm still here, no
yeah,
holds, there's nothing come on, like what's the point of committing if you're gonna commit and say both of us can do what we want to do? Then you can just stay sick. Like what? Anyway, okay, you did you did answer it.
and I'll say like doing therapy work, especially with the population I've been working with the past few years,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot more open relationships. Like, and if people are on the same page with that, then go for what you know. Who am I to stand in the way and say that's not what you should do because that's what you decide? Now, if one person's in an open relationship, another person's not, then of course you got a bigger issue on your hands.
So me, when I hear relationship, I'm like, open to what? Anything? Like, what is the point of being in a relationship? It's just open, just whatever can come in, whatever can go out, like just.
And
but like, if that's what you want, then how can I say this couple is crazy for doing that?
Yeah,
that's float your boat and your lost remote. Go for it, but it's weird.
But think about Beyonce and Jay-Z, and people were calling her crazy for staying with him, and then,
right after,
but at the same time, it's like that's their personal decision. And if you think about it, think about some of these grandparents and whatnot, who a lot of families have an outside kid. A lot of families, there can be some infidelity there. People stay together. Not to say that has to be the issue you have to work through in marriage to stay together a long time, but there are going to be situations that arise where it's like I have to make a personal choice to stay or to go.
Yeah.
It may not always be infidelity, but it doesn't mean that the other stuff that takes place is like less impactful.
Right.
When it comes to infidelity, because that's the go-to. Like you cheated. Like that's like the ultimate thing. But other things can take place that can be just as hurtful to that person.
That actually leads to the next question under the category of infidelity, actually. Here's the question. Okay, so a man steps out on his wife. Okay. Mm-hmm. He makes a baby. And then all the things that follow that. Okay, so a woman does the same thing. She steps out on her husband, she gets pregnant. The question is, what is the reason that a man can expect a woman to stay faithful through infidelity, but when a man learns of infidelity, he's like, I'm out? What should hold a woman there that won't keep a man there? Can a man accept the same hurt he puts a female through? Tread lightly. Come on with it.
So that's a two-parted question. So I'll start with the first part.
Okay.
With baby being created.
Yes.
All right. So the baby is a result of the sexual act. And whether you get pregnant or not, the sexual act still took place.
Yes.
Now you have like a lifelong reminder that you got to look at all the time of this child being a part of the picture now.
Yeah.
And so now from a logistical standpoint, chances are that the man gets somebody pregnant, that the baby's going to come live with them is probably not going to happen.
Right.
From a logistical standpoint, if the woman gets pregnant and that baby is at home with them. So yes. From a logistical standpoint, the exposure, I guess, to the child could be a thing. So I guess that's that part. I think logistics plays a part in that. The other part of it of if she did it to him, why can't he handle the hurt?
Yeah.
Because men are extremely fragile and prideful and sensitive, even though society kind of nudges them to not be those things.
Yeah.
And so it hits that male ego differently. So I would say that it's that male ego aspect to it. Like another man doing something for your wife that you can't do or wasn't able to do or she chose over you. And historically, I think society is shaped in some ways to where it's like, what man's going to be a man, and the man has needs, and all these different things that promote that unhealthy masculinity.
Yeah.
I mean, look over years and years and years and years of society, and that's consistently been the case. To where it's like the woman just grins and bears it, while the man kind of just does his thing, or it's acceptable for men to be more sexual than women.
Yeah, it's an allowance of like a double standard, like to the I don't know what it's like. Yeah, you'll be strong. However, I also think like it's really like you said, like the baby is more than likely going to stay with her. However, when I accept, or if I accept my husband having an affair and having a baby, the baby's going to come around. There's going to be birthday parties. There's going to be family stuff that happens. There's going to be times where he comes to church with me. There's going to be times where we are together. And it's like, I've got to explain it to my family. I've got to explain it to my friends. But there's something that's just saying that, yeah, she's strong enough. That is so.
And let me tell you, I think that speaks to something else, is that this, like, especially with Black women, the narrative of like just being so strong, is that you're just able to like just take it, and that's unfair. For that pressure to be placed on women.
Thank you for saying that.
And so, yeah, and so, and I think that's a narrative that's kind of pushed on us, like most narratives are. And like you see it in medical fields, like, Black women die from things that most women don't, because it's believed that Black women's pain is not as real or as severe as they say it is, or they can take more, or whatnot. So I think that's something that's just like been a narrative for a long period of time, and it's just become even more intense. When you hear songs about, movies about it, strong Black this, strong Black woman that. It's like, yeah, you're strong, but at the same time, is it fair to like just say, well, you're strong, you can just take all of it nonstop? That's not fair. And so, again, logistics. You're constantly seeing this child in the house and having to develop a relationship with this child, and I can't imagine it. I don't want to imagine it, like what the dynamics would be like. I'm just, thinking like the choices that's made to be a part of that child's life or whatnot. So like with the guy, I guess it's like, regardless of how tough it is, because it's going to be tough, you can leave here and go see that child, and I don't have to be a part of that, and I can selectively be a part of that. Where if the child's in the home, it's not much selection to it. You have a choice to be like, okay, well, I'm going to take on this child and the responsibility and my role of being involved, and it's not the child's fault, and yada yada yada, or it's like I got resentment.
Yeah, and you're making a relationship. You're forming a relationship with your pain.
Yeah, ooh, that's good.
Because that's painful.
Yeah, and so like I've never known a dynamic like that personally. And I don't have a clear-cut answer for that. I can imagine it would be tough, and I think it's tough on both sides. My only thing is like logistics of the situation. Like, what would the logistics look like of this child being in the home 100% of the time, or 75 to 80% of the time, based on the involvement of the child's father, versus like that child being there every other weekend or whatever. Like, you don't have to be up. It's not in your face all the time, I guess. And then male fragility dominates the scene when it comes to your wife having extramarital affair versus like you have an extramarital affair. So it's one of those heterosexual norms in society, to where it's just like accepted for guys to do things, like you said, standard.
That's pretty much the bottom line, right? So the next question is one that that I have really wondered about myself for a long time. So this woman says, why is it that men with the most unappealing women, like why is it that it's always like he's going down to someone else when he cheats? And like I've always thought of it like, well, at least give me one reason to say, well, I guess I can see one
Tread lightly. Tread lightly. So I heard Chris Rock say, not that I agree with this, but I heard him say he's a comedian. And men are as faithful as their options.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Not to say I agree with it. Not, hands up. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just using a reference. A reference.
Woo.
But I would say,
wow.
I think it's a matter of opinion. Like what makes this person less appealing? Why it comes down to why are you choosing that person over me? Like what are they bringing to the table? I'm not. More than them like being, well, they're not as fine as me, or they're not as this as me, or they're not as that as me. It's like, what are they bringing to the table that I'm not bringing? Because then that brings in questions of your own value and self-worth in a relationship, or just in general. Okay. And of course, you're gonna, pick apart. Like it's like, if it's like, your woman steps out with somebody else, or just has communication you're not comfortable with, it's like, well, this dude lame. Like, why are you talking to him? Person this is like, it's gonna come in a couple of ways. You're gonna look at it and compare yourself and think, well, they got a better chest than I do, they work out more than I do, or
that's for sure.
They got a better smile, or they weigh less. Yeah. So it's gonna be that, and it's gonna be, picking them apart like, she trash. Why you chose her?
Yeah.
And so that can be a part of it, maybe there's, I guess, something sexually there where it's like, maybe they're available, I guess.
Okay.
I say that in the most appropriate way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Or it could be conversations. It could be, somebody at work that, you just have like this work relationship with, and it's just, what it is that all you see is the side of it you want to see.
Yeah. So
you don't get the full-time version of that person. You get
that's a good point. Because we're like, look at her. She's not even, okay, that's a good point.
You're going to get that person in small blocks, so if it's the guy, if it's the girl, whoever it is like, you get the small blocks of that person, and in those small blocks, you see all that you want to see, and it's all good. Okay. Now, when you get full access to anybody, then you see everything, and it's like, well, that ain't that appealing.
Okay.
And so, or the more time you're around that person, it's like, I don't like this, I don't like that. But like anything, like when it's exciting and it's new, you just have the blinders on, and you just see really what you want to see. And it's an illusion.
So do you agree that sometimes when you're physical with somebody, do you agree that sometimes it's just sex for men? Like they're not like, I have this feeling for her, she connects with me, blah, 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 or I like it, can it just be like, I had sex with her for a man? It was just sex.
Yeah. I think so, but I also think I don't think that's gender exclusive. I think anybody can just be in a just sex situation.
Yeah. Okay.
And it can start out as just sex, and feelings can develop as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it can be just sex, and it can be more than just sex.
Okay. Here's a question that I'm just gonna go ahead and be transparent. I had a problem with this that I had to straighten out, when I was married. This is something that's one of my pet peeves in a relationship, and I'm just gonna ask it. Okay. Why do men feel like when they're with their wife or girlfriend that it's okay? Well, let me reword it. Do you feel like it's okay if you're with your wife and you see an attractive woman? Do you feel like it's okay to take your whole neck, just your whole everything, your eyes, your neck, your everything, and reposition? Like, I want to check her out. I'm going to look at her I'm gonna check her out.
Yeah. No, that's not okay. That's disrespectful. I mean, now
Okay.
you're gonna see stuff, but you ain't gotta break your neck to be like, it's like, you can like quick glance and
Okay. Because I feel like if you're with your wife or girlfriend or whatever, and you see an attractive woman, now don't get me wrong, if he is by himself, look all you want, because you're gonna see people that's attractive, and it's, to me, now other women might think differently. To me, it's not disrespectful if you're not with me. I mean, now if you're like all like this, that's disrespectful. But if you're looking at her, you're like, wow, she's pretty, or man, she's fine, or whatever you're thinking, that's fine. But if you're with me and you're all like, I don't care if she thick as cold peanut butter. If you're with me, you don't need to be like doing all this. Like you'll see another beautiful woman when you're not with me, and you could do that when I'm not around.
And to be completely honest, like if you're breaking your neck looking at people at any point in time,
yeah,
that's played. I mean, like, first off, it's offensive. You're being really misogynistic in the process.
yes.
And it just looks lame. Like you just, all doing this and turning around about breaking your neck.
I have had that.
Somebody at Walmart, like, what's that person feeling? Because in the mind is that, ooh, they like it when I do this. And it's like, nah, dude, that's it's creepy. And so I've had people in life tell me it's like there are more appropriate ways or less obvious ways to check somebody out. And you can't you can't just, when they walk by and like, whoa, look at that, because in your mind you're going to tell yourself, well, they wore this because they knew I would look, or they wanted me to check them out, and stuff like that. Things you convince yourself that's true, that's not true. And that's, it's violating itself. I mean, like, so yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I have to make that
clear. That's going to happen, but when you're with your person, definitely not. Even by yourself.
Yeah, come on.
You still got to have some couth about yourself.
Yes, because I make that known, and I've had it happen to me. It's not a good feeling. So you have to like kind of, you shouldn't have to make it known. It's like, don't bring that mess around here, Evan. But anyway, okay.
But so let me ask you this: as a woman, like, is it flattering or creepy if somebody like break their neck, turn around looking at you and, gawking at you and stuff like that? Like, flattering or creepy. I mean, think about that in general. Like, man, it's like, okay, check me out, but don't follow me down 3 Walmart aisles doing so. Like,
yeah. So it goes from flattering to creepy. Obviously, a woman wants like a nice gland and a like a nice little notice, but I mean, I don't need to think that you're like literally following me around the store. That's it actually goes from flattering to creepy
pretty quick. It's a fine line.
Yes. Yeah. just look and acknowledge, and
and sometimes there's no line. Some people just don't like that.
Yeah. So this is crazy, because I have like so many questions and I feel like overwhelmed. I don't know what to pick.
It's like close your eyes and point at the paper.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to do that, because I'm like, oh God, I don't want nobody feeling like I didn't choose their question. Oh, okay, here's one. After a man hurts you, cheats, breaks your heart, does something to offend you or hurt you in your relationship, why do men think I'm sorry is sufficient, or begging for another chance is sufficient? Like I used to tell my mate or my ex-husband or my man or whatever, be the apology. Like, stop saying that. I don't really want to hear it. Like, you can put your sorries in a bag. I don't want to hear I'm sorry. So if you cheated on me, if you didn't have to be infidelity, but if you did something to hurt me, I'll just put in this quick example. I dated a guy, and I had gone around his family, and his mother asked, this is the first time I was around his family, and his mother asked, why does she have to be so dark? And he didn't say anything to her. Of course, it was hurtful. It was offensive because I didn't know her. And when I went to hug her, she said, oh, honey, no, I don't do hugs. I don't do hugs, but nice to meet you. And I told him in the car, on the way, I showed him with my attitude while I was there that I was not pleased with the way he did not, defend me or whatever. And then in the car, I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that. I don't think I'm gonna like your mother. I'm just gonna go ahead and be honest. I don't like how she treated me, and I don't like even more that you didn't say anything. So he's like, I'm sorry. And even with infidelity, if you cheated on a partner, because this particular woman said, if you cheated on me, you need to check in and be like, babe, I made it to work. Babe, I made it to my mom's. Hey, babe, I'm here. Me and the boys just got to the pool hall. I'll call you when I get in the car. Now, a lot of guys might feel like, I don't do all that. That's crazy on me. But if you did the crime. Like, okay, so be the apology. Like, why do guys be like, I said I was sorry last week like 5 times? It's like, why do guys do it? We don't need the sorry.
So
we need the apology. Sorry.
I get hit you personally. I'll say this.
Okay.
As a person that's been married 12 years, I've made my share of mistakes. And, I heard a therapist say this one time. It's like, you commit an emotional violation. So whether it's infidelity, whether it's not taking up for me in front of your family, whether it's, being like verbally abusive or demeaning, or whatever it is, it's a violation. Yeah. Empathy is the way. Like, you have to work to put yourself in the other person's shoes to see how they feel. And the road through empathy, like taking that path.
Yeah.
Empathy is constantly going. Like, empathy doesn't have like a stop date. So if I commit an emotional violation, then I have to remain empathetic towards you in the process. So if it's, a reminder of the event, if it's the person somehow pops back up, or you see them somewhere, or if you're watching a movie and it has like a, really, scene very similar to what you experienced.
Oh my God. Talk.
Then I need to be empathetic towards that, and my empathy doesn't stop. So like saying I'm sorry and begging for forgiveness is like, you expect, it's almost like looking for that sympathetic, I give you this sympathy, here's this card, and this should soothe it over. And I'm being empathetic towards you along the way. Now, the caveat to that is, you said do the crime, do the time. All right. So what's the sentence? If I go to jail and I get a release date, then I get out on that date. And so
that is a great point.
And I heard my pastor say this once, and it was like, if a person does something and y'all decide to stay in the situations, this is our marriage and matters class he was talking to. It was like, at some point, you can't keep making me pay for the same crime over and over again at your discretion.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a responsibility for empathy. And if you choose forgiveness, you have a responsibility for forgiveness. And some of those feelings you're going to have to own and process through, and not always just shove it on me. Because if we create a plan and we work the plan out, if we go to counseling, if we do some books together, if we communicate more and all these different things, then I'm showing consistency and I'm, whatever, then you have to own your responsibility of allowing yourself to forgive, allowing yourself not necessarily to move on, but move forward with what happened.
Yeah.
You can't move on from it. It's a part of your narrative now. It's a part of your narrative individually. It's a part of your narrative as a couple.
Yeah.
And so you move forward with it. So sometimes it's like, okay, I'm being triggered. I'm being reminded. Am I just displaying it through attitude and numbness or coldness, or am I communicating through it? So if it's an issue, if it's something that's happened and it's not anything they particularly did, but can we communicate through it so you know where I'm coming from and how I feel? Not that I'm just raking you over the coals, but this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
And you give the person the opportunity to meet the need versus like finding an indirect way to communicate the need in them not being able to meet whatever needs you have or communicate to what you have going on. Now the other person, the partner, has to be receptive and open to that communication in order for it to exist, in order for it to exist. And if it doesn't, then that's a different kind of conversation you need to have. Mm-hmm. But it's, well, as long as I'm hurt, you're going to feel this hurt. Okay. But then at some point, like, where are we going from here?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to keep paying for it until you tell me, till you feel like it's enough? Are you going
That's a really good point.
Tracking me because it's tracking me really solving it, or is it I'm functioning out of this insecurity? And,
wow.
And I mean, you have the right to, definitely. And it's at some point, where are we going from here? Because if you choose to do it, you choose to continue, then you're also choosing to say, we're not always going to be here in this moment.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And that's tough, because when you're hurt, you want somebody to pay for hurting you.
Yeah.
And, but it's like a child. If you punish your child without any end date or any clarity to it, what's going to happen is your anger and your hurt is going to start to fall on deaf ears. Because if you have a child and you say, okay, no video games until I think differently, well, after a few weeks, that child's going to find something else to do. Or they're just going to wait till you're not around and do what we did. We was kids and play the video games till my grandma got home from work. And threw it back in the closet real quick. And so, you want to, not to say you're going to know a date to when your hurt stops. Mm-hmm. Are we progressively taking steps? Are we opening up communication versus like, will you just stop doing this?
Yeah.
It's about just stopping this. It's about, okay, where are we going to learn and grow from this?
Yeah. And on both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. And is there learning and growth? Because whether it be an emotional violation of any kind, so we're talking about cheating or infidelity, it's not always that this dude is just trash or this woman is just trash. Because I've had clients who have had stuff like that happen, and it's like, all right, so this is the act. That's what took place. Now let's think about other things that could contribute to that. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it can like be born out of insecurities or hurts in the past, or feeling out of control, and this is a sense of control. And that's the same thing as like if a person has alcohol addiction or drug addiction, or they watch pornography or whatever. A lot of the times is that what triggers you, like to say pornography, because I know that's the issue in a lot of relationships. What triggers the desire to watch pornography is not always sexually connected. Okay. You can have a bad day at work. You can have an argument with your spouse. You could feel out of control in a certain area. And your way to exercise that control is to go do this. It's like a relationship with food. A lot of times it's not about I'm just eating because I can't stop eating. It's eating because this is a form of control and I feel out of control in another area. Now, it doesn't make the behavior okay. Yeah. But it adds context and perspective so that you can explore, like, well, what's the reasons behind doing it?
Speaking of the reasons behind doing it, that is such a good point. What I feel like I have a friend, one of my best friends, who had gone through this same thing with infidelity and her spouse. And she kind of cut me off for a minute because I was one of those direct friends that was like, let me just say, when it comes to infidelity in my head, and a man is unfaithful to his wife, to me, I look at it two-sided. On one side of it, a man can say, babe, it had nothing to do with you. My infidelity had nothing to do with you at all. It's me. I'm insecure. I wanted to see if I still got it. It's just something with me that I kind of need healing in such and such a way. On the other hand, they can say, yeah, it had a lot to do with you. You don't cook. You don't give me attention. We're not intimate. You don't take time for me. You spend more time with the children than you do me. I feel like it bothers me when women think his infidelity has to be repaired just by him. If he tells you that you are a part of the reason, both of you have a lot of work to do. And it bothers me when the woman's like, well, he shouldn't have cheated, and he better this, and he better that. He better start taking me on more dates. He got to do this and do all this to make up for cheating. The problem is both of you have a lot of work to do. And a lot of times when he says, babe, you had a lot to do with why I cheated, sometimes you got more work to do than he does. Because he's like, I did this because it was motivated by this. When I come home, it's not inviting. The house don't smell like food. You don't want to give me any. We don't talk about such and such. I explained this to her, and she's like, well, I thought you was on my side. The thing is, when healing, you can't spell healing without H-E. He is either you have to help him, or he's gonna have to help himself, because sometimes he'll say you didn't have anything to do with it. Other times he's like, yeah, you contributed a lot.
I'll say this, and this is, therapy, I guess, and personal, is that there is it's not absolute. There are few situations where there's a 100% victim in a situation.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And when I saw this therapist, I think his IG handle was like the Angry Therapist or something like that. But one of the things he said in a relationship is that you have to own your part, and each person has a part. Yeah. Now, your part might be 30%, but your responsibility is owning that 30%. And when you do so, it forces you to go from doing this to doing this.
Yes.
And that's very difficult because, okay, if I dissect the situation, I didn't communicate well. I was numb. I didn't pay attention. I belittled. I did whatever it may be. But again, we end up hyper-focusing on, well, you cheated, end all be all. Like, this is the goal.
Yeah.
And we ignore all the other stuff that takes place. So if you look at like a pie, well, the emotional violation is a slice of the pie. It's not the whole pie.
That's very true.
There are things that take place before and after that contribute to this.
Yeah.
Now, this is not acceptable and it's not okay. All right. But when you look in the context of it just being a piece of the pie, then it's like, all right, what else is happening here? What's happening with me? What's happening with you?
Yeah.
You need to go talk to somebody. Are you using this as an emotional outlet to where you need to find a healthy way of finding that emotional outlet? Is there ways I'm communicating that's maybe pushing you away? Because it's just like if a woman steps out in the situation, it's like, as the guy, what am I doing? Or as the partner, what am I doing that's nudging? So
yeah, that's a good point.
If I'm not being intimate and not just sex, I'm talking about intimacy.
Yes.
Right? My wife had this conversation with me a lot. It's like, I need intimacy, so that's communicating throughout the day. That's, her love language, one of them is physical touch. So it's like being present, touch, and stuff like
that.
If I'm not meeting those needs, then that contributes too. If I'm not self-aware of what I'm bringing to the table and me owning that part of it, then that's something I have to take on the responsibility to do.
Yeah.
And it hurts to do that because you're seeing that I'm hurt. You hurt me. So the fix is not me, the fix is you.
Yes. I'm
so,
glad you said it.
Yeah.
You said it.
And it doesn't, sometimes we feel like it's like a win and a loss situation. Like I lose if I take on responsibility and you win.
For sure.
It's not a win or a loss. It's not an either or. It's a both and.
Yeah.
I'm hurt and there's work I can do on my end. I'm hurt, but you know what? I put a lot of responsibility on you for you to make me feel the way I need to feel, when it's like, you know what? I need to do some self-work to work on how I feel and how I need to feel. And I can't give all the responsibility to you. because no one person can be all things to you. But we'll enter in relationships and we'll enter into marriages with these ideals of what it should be.
Yeah.
We'll imagine like, well, it's going to be this. So now it has to be that. And now they're responsible to create this like super happy, constantly fulfilling space, which that's not the case in any form of life. There's always going to be gaps. There's always going to be holes there. And you're bringing people together who separately have their own stuff.
Yes.
And so it takes time to like figure that out. And if you got a good example of what that looks like, that's great. And you're seeing that current version of them. You didn't see them in the dark days, you know.
That's for sure.
You didn't see them in the development process. You see that current version of them or what's presented to you or whatnot. And so both people have responsibility. And again, it might be 20%, but that's still your 20%. Yeah. And I don't have to give up my hurt to take on my responsibility.
Oh, that's good. Let me write that down.
It's like forgiveness. For me to forgive you means I have to give up what hurt. No, it still hurt. And this is what we're choosing to do. Like I think about the relationship with my father. Before he passed, we had a great relationship. Yeah. First, 20 years of my life, that wasn't the case. And so in the process of like forgiving him and us developing a relationship, one of the biggest things for me was understanding more about him and his narrative.
Yeah.
And me doing so doesn't mean now I can't be my hurt from when he would say he was going to come pick me up and didn't come pick me up doesn't matter anymore. Oh, that still happened.
Yeah.
That still happened. Like that's chalked up. It's a part of the history. Yeah. And so it's not that I got to lose in order for you to win, because if you do win, what are you winning? If you're hurt and I say, okay, now I'm going to win this and you're going to feel all my pain and I'm going to give you some pain too. It's like, and you do that, now what's your trophy?
Yeah.
And that's a phrase my wife used once. It was like, we argue and I win and I get the trophy. Like, what's my trophy? And I was like, man, that's deep. And that's the thing. So whether you are aggressive or passive aggressive or whatever, it's like, if you find your way to where you feel like you won, then what did you win?
That is great. The point is for us both to win because we're together.
Yeah. Now, if you can't be together, then that's another discussion, because you don't have to be together.
Yeah. That's true.
But if you decide to do it and there's enough to stay there, then it's like, okay, I have my hurt and I'm entitled to that. And what are we going to do to fix it? Because we both now have a responsibility in the fixing and the healing part of it.
Yeah. So here's a question that I thought was pretty interesting. This lady says, if it appears that everything is good in your relationship, what are some of the reasons a man would entertain the opposite sex, whether it leads to something or not? If everything seems great and solid, like why does that happen?
Well, I guess this would be like a religious sort of like, way of looking at it, is that the enemy is always out there lurking.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be distractions.
Yeah.
And distractions come the heaviest when things seem to be rolling along great. And it shows up in the most, sneaky or just, ways that you're just completely unaware.
Yeah. And
sometimes men and women both, you find yourself entertaining stuff without the thought that anything else is going to come along with it. And then something does. Like you're in a moment where it's like a text exchange takes place and it's like, I make a decision if I continue this text conversation or not. It can be.
Yeah, that's true.
And so at one of my previous jobs working with kids, we used to talk about this acronym called SUDS, SUDS, and SUD, but seemingly unimportant decisions. Like things that don't seem like that big of a deal at the time, but they can snowball an avalanche into something better or something not better, something worse.
Something bigger, okay.
And so something bigger. And so it can come like that. Like it may not be the intent. It can just happen. It doesn't mean the other person has these evil intentions or whatever.
Okay.
It can just happen. And then sometimes people just be out here looking. You know, I mean, you can't negate that. You can't just say, well, it's all like this, you know, situation where it's just we're totally dive into therapy and past feelings and stuff like that. Sometimes people be out here, you know, lurking. And so, I mean, that exists too. And it's not absolutes. So that exists. And it can just be a situation to where something pops up and they weren't intending it, and you find yourself entertaining more than what you need to. And it can be as simple as a DM or over complimenting somebody, or, you know, you have good vibes with somebody and y'all talk too much and don't put boundaries in place.
Yeah.
Knowing when to back away and say, you know what, I need to slow down this communication. Or even just having like a set of standards of,
this is how far I'm gonna go.
Yeah, or just, you know, I just don't entertain certain things. Like,
so does that mean
go ahead.
That it's possible for there not to be nothing, that it's possible for there to be nothing, like nothing else going on, or you could very well be happy at home and this happens, and it's just like, that doesn't necessarily mean something's about to unfold. It could just be like you went too far. Is that what you mean?
I mean, it can be more. Like I say, it's no, as I talk about this, it's not like, there's no like, there's one way approach to it. There's no like, not a straight line. It's
okay.
And things could seem to be great, and that person could be dealing with stuff internally.
Okay. And then you
because think about it. How often are we around here looking great, feeling, you know, presenting great, and we're not great? Like, that's what we do. We're accustomed to that.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to read this question in twofold. It's kind of going to come together. Why do men use sex as a determining factor for pursuing a relationship? And why is it that when a woman says she's not looking to have sex in the beginning, men always come back with, we grown. We want to do, we can just do it. Like, why we gotta, like, why do, what is that about?
The sex feels good and men want it and women want it too. At the best of it. Sexual intercourse feels wonderful. All right.
Hey man, I mean, it was created for by the best who could create.
Yeah. I mean, so it was designed to be good, and it does. So, so that's that. And that's a situation to where if you're around a person that doesn't honor or respect that part of your decision-making process, then it's like, do I have to drag you here? If I got to drag you to this point, then if it's not this, then what else is it going to be? Like, you know, you want to be and be with or entertain people that, if that's your standard, then they're okay with it. Because the thing is that if you give in, so to speak, or you just go along with it, are you really consenting to have sex? Or you just kind of like, well, you know, this is just what we have to do in order to like progress or to keep him or whatever. And so people do what has historically worked for them. So if they've been faced with that situation before, they've been able to wear the person down, or maybe put them in a position where they didn't feel comfortable or whatever, and that person just gave in or just complied. I hate to say gave in, but just like complied. Then that's not necessarily like consensual. That's more of, I'm just doing what I feel I need to do to like keep this going because I want this relationship, or I want to get rid of this loneliness, or whatever it is. And so if a person is not willing to meet you where you are, go from there, then it's, well, how do we build on that? Because my take on it is that if it's not this, and I say, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do it, then what's to say that when something else pops up that's important to you and you want them to respect that, they're going to respect that.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because now the foundation's set.
Yeah.
I can be moved off my stance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes both ways, because if it's a guy and it's like, yo, I've been down this road before, I want to take my time, and it's like, you know, but we can do both. And it's like some people can't do both.
Yeah.
Some people they see sex and intimacy differently than others.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think some of that is shaped by society. Like, as men,
yes,
this is what, you're supposed to do. Like, was it coming to America? You're going to America to sow your wild oats.
Right.
It's like a rite of passage almost. Like, and that's how it's presented. Think about how it's presented to our sons and daughters, what sex is.
Yeah.
And intimacy, and how it's not ladylike for a woman, but for a man, it's like, well, he's gonna figure it out until he get the right one. So it's packaged that way from the beginning, and then you get the adult versions of it, and it's like, I'm pressing, you're resisting, until my pressing, you're resisting kind of comes together, and it's like we just decide to do it.
Yeah.
Versus like we just take our time and develop at our own pace. So if y'all start from the beginning having sex, then kudos. That's what you want to do, go for it. If y'all decide to take your time and get to know each other better in a different way, go for it. You wait till you get married, go for it. It's important to move at your individual speed and communicate that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get in situations that we expect, or we mind read, or we, hope without really doing the investigation. And then when we find ourselves in a moment where it's like they don't react the way we anticipated they would, then we're upset. Mm-hmm. It's like, but did we have this communication?
Yeah.
Did we establish this boundary from the jump?
That is a good, let me ask you this. That's a good question. Okay. I mean, that's a good comment. I just sparked this question when you said that. So is it possible to have, because to be honest, I have cut off a lot of people because of that, because to me, it bothers me when a guy can't go, I say it's like evolves into like the 5 L's. You look at a woman, you lust, you like her, you learn her, you love her, you live with her. That's how I feel it should. That's what I've come up with. And to me, it bothers me when you get stuck at lusting. You don't, at first, I mean, to me, I feel like you give an opportunity to learn her and all this stuff. And it's offensive when a woman feels like you want to jump past learning something about me, developing something with me, and having a strong bond, because it makes us feel disposable. If you're like, when are we going to be intimate? Because it feels like if you're jumping to that, then you're going to jump on after you get that. And so is it possible for really good men to want that and not want that because you want it, obviously, but is it possible for a really good man and have great intentions and really be a good guy to say, that's what I want up front? Because I've literally cut people off like, no, I told you like what I want, and you're still like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. This is what I want. And it's like, yeah, so I'm not talking to you no more. So is it possible for it to be a really good guy that's like, I want to be intimate with you now?
Yeah.
I mean, not the desire, but I mean, I'm asking, not the desire to do it, but I mean, just like, if I express that that's something that I don't want to do right now, is it something that you...
The thing is that really do that? Your wants and needs aren't necessarily my wants and needs.
Okay.
Now, you want to wait, and I come in not thinking, well, my time period for waiting may not be as long as yours.
Okay.
Does that make me bad? I mean, is it like a moral complex attached to that? And so, and that's where communication is so important. It's like, and you go at the speed you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Now, if you say 6 months, and that's like your, default setting. But then how connect is good, it's whatever. Are you compromising yourself if you go 4 months versus 6 months? Probably not. If you got a good feel for that person, because that person may just wait 6 months and then still be trash. I mean, it's like as an individual. So, but it's a good filtration system.
What is?
I mean, like if you say, I'm waiting for this, that can filter a lot of people out from the standpoint.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like, well, you couldn't wait 3 weeks. So, well, then you made the decision easy for me kind of situation. But I don't think it's like a good or a bad or like a good man necessarily is like, well, I'm good because I wait. Well, that doesn't make you good. That just means you have some, some, I guess, self-control when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
You're willing to wait it out. And so, or you could just be persistent.
Guys really be fun. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, if you're like, well, I don't want to be intimate until, let's just say you're like, I don't want to be intimate until we're married. I'm celibate. I'm not celibate. Abstinent. I'm sorry. Not celibate. Celibate's like, you're never going to do it again. But if you're abstinent.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to do that until, like, I've had people literally tell me, like, that's crazy. I'm not doing that. That's crazy. I need to know how this feels. Try to say this in a nice way. I need to know how you feel. Like, I'm not going to do
that. People take different approaches to that. I mean, if you look at, what we're taught in church growing up, you wait till you get married, and so that's that part of it. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this were taught that too. And then if you're making two decisions as consenting adults, then
it's different.
I mean, this is my choice. Now, if you come to me and say, you know what, I know this is headed somewhere. I really think we can progress. And just so you know that my plan is to remain abstinent until we get married.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you give me that information.
Okay.
And I have the right to process that information.
That's true.
And I may not have the right response in the moment. I might be like, whoo, like, you start to, looking at it. Time, you're going to be engaged for this amount of time, and then we're going to get married. You looking at, man, this could be 2 years. It's like, I have the right to process the way I process.
That's true,
yeah. Do a fast process. I might have to step back and be like, all right, then. I have the right to say, you know what? Let me think about it. Because I like you, I love you, and this is tough for me because I ain't been in this position before.
Right, yeah.
People still deserve grace.
Yeah, for sure.
And so sometimes we'll feel like, this is how I feel. You got to just believe how I feel right now on the spot. No questions asked. No whatever. Because also, if a person jumps on something too quick, then you might want to, think about that.
Yeah.
Or it's like, or if y'all decide, we're not going to have sex till we get married, but it doesn't mean not going to be moments where it's going to be intimacy. Intimacy is more than sex. And there may be some tough moments in there, and you got to, have a game plan going into it. And so
it's doable though.
Yeah, I mean, it's doable. I know people that do it. I know people that have been in relationships and had sex or been married before and then decide to do it again, and this is how I'm going to do it. Like, the thing is that, especially growing up, like growing up churchy like I did, that expectation was like put out there.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be super hard.
Yeah. Like,
I was a virgin until I was like 20. And that was a choice, and it was a difficult decision. It's like
it's difficult, and it's difficult because there are so many people who feel like they make you feel like it's ridiculous. Like my husband was my first, and I was 24. When leading up to, like, all my relationships leading up to him, it wasn't that many, but my relationships leading up to dating him, people act like I was from another planet. How do you do that? Well, how do you expect me to do that? I mean, like, that was my decision, and I had to like press. It's hard, but if that's what you decide to do, I feel like it's doable. But like you said, the way I grew up the same way, like, this is wrong. You need to wait.
And the thing is
I
that,
was thinking about the opposite. Like, that's not possible. You can't just stay. You don't wait on your husband. Like,
and sex is everywhere, and sexual options
you,
are everywhere.
yes,
And
yeah,
so, and you don't turn off your sexuality because you decide to say I'm awake. Like that don't go on hold. You know, you
yeah,
still get aroused. I mean, and you know, women and men both want the sex. It's not a, you know,
right.
guys want it and girls don't. It's like, no, everybody is sexual in their own way. And so some may have more sexual drive or like desire than others or whatnot, or maybe aroused differently. But the thing is, you know, people still want it. And
Yeah,
again, it's not I think sometimes like the the message can be twisted in that, well, guys just want it and girls are just like, bam. Where it's like, no, y'all both want it.
yeah.
Now, what's our decision about like how we're going to go about it? And if we're not going to do it, then we have to be committed to together to saying no, because you were constantly pressuring me and you're constantly pressuring me. And how is that fair to me?
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, has to be understood. And if you decide to get into a relationship with somebody who that's never been their thing, they've always, you know, had sex with whoever they were with, and they get with you and y'all vibing and everything, and like, okay, this is my stance, then it's like, nah, this is the baseline, this is what we're gonna do. Then if you like that person, you allow that person to develop along that way.
Yeah.
Versus like, well, now you got to turn off your sex drive. No, it's just now it's like expressing what's comfortable and what's not comfortable to you. Yeah. Like you're pushing, you're doing too much. You know, you can't do that, or you know, whatever it is. And at the base of it, it all comes down to like how you communicate through it. Not my expectations, but what are we inspecting? Are we inspecting this? Are we like, you good? You know, kind of thing. Like, you know, we getting, you know, you can't cuddle too much longer. I mean, like, or
it's getting late
with a person and they not doing something, but then y'all doing, you know, sexual type stuff, or a lot of touching and like, all right, then I need to back off. It's like, you got to give them that space because, you know, they're not used to like being in that position. And so, you know, communicating through it and verbalizing expectations. That's one of the things when it comes to sex, especially in the Black community and like church communities, is that we're doing it, but we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
And so
that's how I feel. Like that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and so it's okay to be like, let's have this conversation about sex. Let's have this conversation about sex. Versus like, you know, hoping one person stops before the other. It's, you know, let's talk about this. Even if you are having sex, let's talk about this. I like this. I don't like this. You know, I like more of this. I like less of that. You know, it's like, whatever that is, like, is uncomfortable, or it can be uncomfortable based on how we've been developed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it can't be addressed.
That's cool. I did not realize the time. I feel horrible. Like I got, oh my God. Can I ask you one more?
Go for it.
This is crazy. Okay. This is going to have to be the last one. I feel bad because it's a lot of great questions on here. So one lady asked, how do you teach a man who is raised on survival how to love someone who is raised on love?
Well, what's your role as teacher, I would say. Because, and I would say that, like, really identify your role as teacher, because are you giving yourself too much responsibility?
Wow.
And then I'm teaching you also my version of love. So what's to say my version of love is like perfect? Because I look
Yeah,
at our
that's right.
environment differently.
Yeah.
And also environment shape us. And just because, you come from, a loving environment doesn't mean you have, a lock on how love works. You got a lock
Yeah.
on what you knew love or what you know love as, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean love is not like well, here's a definition, that's it. Now go do love. It's like everybody, and I heard The Rock say this in an interview with Oprah, like we all have a capacity to love and understanding the other person's capacity to love.
Wow.
So if I come from an environment where it's like survival from the standpoint of, money or food insecurities or whatever,
Yeah.
then my love tank in that area might be different from yours because you didn't have those struggles. All right. And the growth can be, and I'll use me and my wife as an example. Like I didn't go on like a ton of family vacations growing up. That wasn't a thing. Like we went to the family reunion.
Yeah, for sure.
Columbus, Georgia, and that was about it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I wasn't lost on love. But the way my family communicated love, we weren't like just all hugging on each other and saying I love you and stuff like that. But I never didn't feel the love.
Yeah.
And so my wife, her and her family, they took trips. They went places. So a growth point to me was being around that and being able to, okay, let's go to Gatlinburg. Okay, let's go to Disney World. Okay, let's just go do a weekend getaway, just me and you. You know, like because that wasn't my experience. So I had to grow in love that way. I grew in that area of love. So taking the umbrella of love like off and kind of seeing it as individual parts of it. Now, this individual may be great when it comes to a protective factor when it comes to love.
Yeah.
But may not be the best when it comes to like communicating certain ways when it comes to love. And it's not that I necessarily say, okay, here's a chalkboard, let me teach you 1, 2, 3. But it's like, well, I can express my version of love to you. Maybe that can help you feel comfortable to where you can do the same. Or maybe we can communicate through that. Or maybe couples therapy can help with that. That's another thing too. Couples therapy is not just because something goes wrong.
Yes, that is very important to
So
know.
as you can see, Black Therapists Matter is not just because, something hit the fan. It's also because like how we growing together. And so yeah, I think understanding what they see as love, seeing their strengths in love, because just because I don't do love like you do it doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the case. And it's not your responsibility to teach or train or change somebody. Just like, man, it's not your responsibility to take on someone and I got to groom them up to be this. It's like, no, I mean, let me love you where you are and then we can grow together. Not let me get this slate and then create what I want out of it, like I'm a potter and you're the clay, kind of thing. It's important, like when you meet a person, entertain a person, start to fall for this person, you fall for that person. Now, you may have visions of what this person can be based on what they present to you, but not necessarily based on like, well, you're here, but I'm gonna make you pivot and go over there because this is what I think. This was my experience. I negate all the good that you bring to the table because I want you to just evolve to what I think you should be.
Yes.
Like, let me accept you for where you are. Let me fall for you where you are. And then like, oh man, when it comes to business, like you can take this and go here with it. Like I can help you grow on that. But to say, you know what, you shouldn't be doing this. I want you to go over here and do that because that's what I saw happen around me. So you got to do that. And that's because that's not fair. Or to say, well, you just don't know because you just don't know. Like, yeah, I may be missing like the family aspect of it that you have or have had, but it doesn't mean I missed out on all love, period. So like
Yeah.
my sister-in-law, when she came into the picture, my older brother's wife, it was, man, y'all don't like hug each other or tell each other you love each other and stuff like that. But her family dynamic was such where it was always like hugs, and something like that. And that wasn't us. Now,
Yeah.
I remember we talked about that one day early on, and I'm like, but we love each other. My uncle just drove 6 hours to come to a 4th of July barbecue, stay one night and go back. That's love.
Yeah.
That's an action.
Love. Absolutely.
But the growth point was that, but you know what? We can hug more.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
You
can
taught
say,
me.
we can say I love you. And it's not that collective where we got to sit down and be like, okay, y'all, we're going to start saying I love you every time we see each other. But it was, for me, it was like, I love you, Unc. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I love y'all as I'm leaving. I remember the first time I looked at my mom and said, hey, Mom, I love you. I remember that. I should remember that.
Right.
I never felt like in any way I missed out on the love of my mom. Like, I knew it was there. But that just, it wasn't our version of communication then.
Yeah.
But we definitely grew into that when it was like, all right, Ma, I love you. I'll talk to you. And it wasn't like when I said it, she was like, ugh. It was like, but it was a little awkward because that wasn't, we never said that. It needs to be said.
Yeah.
And it was good. My sister-in-law came into the picture to kind of like nudge that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I was doing it wrong from before. It just means now it's room for more. So like we go from here and it's like, all right, now there's this.
Yeah, that's incredible.
We increase our parameters of what we can see.
Yeah.
And so, and it's the same with the person who may ask the question. You know what? This person may have a handle on some things that you don't.
That's true.
So can you see that and say, you know what? All right, so in this way, you got it. So let me increase in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And because I come from this loving background and you don't, well, we compare one versus the other, and we're looking at these particular categories, then yes. But then when I look at more of what you bring to the table and what you do have, it's like, you know what? You got that and I don't. So how can I grow in that area? Otherwise, it's like, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it right. You're doing it wrong. Now we got to fix you. So that means I'm broken. And if you're telling me I'm broken, then how does that make me feel valued in the relationship?
Yeah.
Broken.
Opposed to saying, you can learn from me, I can learn from you. This is how we grow together, and this is what makes love beautiful. Because these are two different people with two different ideals, two different backgrounds, and learn too many different things for you to say, well, he doesn't do it like me, and that's just not going to work for me. You know, you have to just come together and see how you blend well.
And love is unique to the relationship. You can see people that fuss and fight, but man, it let you say something to them and watch that other person jump on you.
Yes.
And that's their love. You know, not to say there's not room to grow, but it's like, you know, they might do whatever. They might not be all lovey-dovey, but talk about that person and see what happens.
Yes.
All over
yeah, I've seen that before.
And so it's not that I got love on lock and you don't. It's this is my room to grow. This is where I can grow. Now, some people definitely have worse examples of being exposed to worse things than others. You might have been exposed to domestic violence. You might have been exposed to, you know, community violence, or, you know, parents were just really mean to each other or really mean to you, and you experienced whatever. Then that definitely has an impact on your capacity to love. So there's some learning there, but it doesn't mean they're completely absent of love. This is their growth area when it comes to it. So that was a long answer, but you know.
That was great. I feel like I like when they lead to other stuff so we can have like different questions. I just want to say thank you so much for being actually my first guest. I'm so excited that we had this opportunity to have this conversation. Now I feel like, oh my goodness, part B, part 2, something. I feel like there's so many questions that we did get, but you know, there's a lot that we didn't get to when it comes to trying to figure out what men think and feel. I swear I feel sometimes like a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. I just literally, I mean, I feel like a lot of us feel like that. That's why we had so many questions. But thank you so much for this. This has just been so great. I appreciate it, and it was so much needed.
And I'll reiterate this. I'm not an expert. I've been a therapist for a long time, so a lot of my stuff is therapeutic. Some was, more self-disclosure. But I'll say this is it's important for us to stop looking at it like all men think this way, all women think this way, because as Black people, that's how we're perceived in general. Mm-hmm. Black people are diverse. It's not a one way of doing things. So you're a good Black man, you're a bad Black man. You're a good Black woman, you're a bad Black woman. It's like, think about the messaging and where that messaging came from. Mm-hmm. Like who gave it to you and then who gave it to them, or what makes you feel that way. So like you gotta, switch to be a certain way around society or white people or whatever, and then you gotta be a different way around Black people and all these different things, or this makes a good Black person, that makes a bad Black person. Like a lot of that can come out of like lack of self-love and self-worth. And Malcolm X said one time, it's like, who taught you to hate yourself?
Yeah.
And I think diving into that part of it is so important because some of this messaging is historical in context. Mm-hmm. Like it's followed us from slavery to Reconstruction to Jim Crow to, mass incarceration. Like some of these things is not just because as Black people, you're this, or as Black people, you're lazy. Like how can people that were forced to work for 400 years be lazy?
Right.
But
that would make
but if I need you to stay my slave, then I'm gonna make you feel like you worthless in order to do so. Like it's the same in an abusive relationship. If I'm abusing you, the idea of me allowing you to go somewhere and get some self-worth, or for me to instill some self-worth and love in you, then I risk losing the person that I can control.
That's right.
So if you're in a relationship and that's the case, then it's not about changing them. It's about recognizing what's happening to you and saying, okay, I need to escape the situation. Yeah. Or when you've been in situations where you were in families where they told you were worthless and weren't going to be anything and all sorts of things that in the Black community, we take on as like, well, that's how Black folks are raised. Then it's like, let me undo some of that messaging. I don't have to repeat. I don't have to beat my kids because we Black and we whoop kids. I mean, like,
right.
I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do, but don't do it because this is what Black folks do. Because Black folks don't go to therapy. And so, and we undoing that. And so I think looking at the messaging, where that stuff comes from, it's like the strong Black woman versus the absentee Black father, the deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
Right? Statistics show that from the 60s to the 80s, there was a significant drop in two-parent households.
Right, yeah.
It fell off. So the Black people all of a sudden decide, you know what, we're going to stop being good fathers and now we're going to just fall off. No. Stuff took place to create that, to create that scenario. And then messaging is out there to reinforce that way of thinking. Yeah. And it's important for us to be like, you know what, we ain't got to subscribe to that.
That's right.
So it's not an all women. It's not an all men. Like I can't date a Black woman because all Black women got attitudes. Kill that noise. That is something that somebody else gave to us that we take on for ourselves. Or all Black men are dogs. Or we don't take care of our kids. That's something that was given to us that we end up taking on ourselves. And we don't have to live by that messaging. Understand the message that's being sent to you. And when you start to think in absolutes like that, let me dissect that up here, because if I'm thinking this and I'm making it your responsibility to change it, this is thinking that's been here for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it could have came from my mom and daddy. It could have came from the movies and music, whatever. What am I doing to undo that nonsense?
Right.
And then let me connect to people who I align with personally, passion-wise, morally, or whatever, versus try to like force people into a box to fit your needs. So that's a spiel, that's a soapbox, but I don't mind standing on it because we have a responsibility to undo this stuff.
Yes, a whole lot.
It's passed down through us. It's historical. It's historical trauma. It's transgenerational trauma. We have a responsibility on our end to undo that messaging. Just like that comment about I don't buy black businesses because they all blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, I've had many of Amazon shipments get messed up. Ain't nobody talking about Amazon trash because, but it's, we do this and we say this stuff to ourselves. Just like as individual, if you tell yourself you're trash, you're unworthy, you don't deserve to be loved, I'm not beautiful, I'm not this, I'm not. If you're constantly giving yourself that, or you're around people who give you those messages, then you're going to live that out.
Yeah.
We got to change the messaging.
Very true.
We got to connect to people who don't reinforce that.
Very true.
So that's our control. That's our responsibility. Even in a relationship, it might be 30%, but you got to manage your 30%. If it's 90%, you got a lot of work to do. You better manage that 90%.
Don't let it be 92.
But we're responsible for that. And it's not all. Sometimes it's more connected to other experiences than what we give credit for.
Yeah.
You might just think it's only about the moment, but it can be about stuff way before the moment that we're in right now. And we have to attend to that. We got to attend to the hurt. We got to attend to the pain. We got to attend to the trauma that we've experienced, the grief, whatever. That's why therapy is so important.
It is.
And I advocate for Black mental health. Church works, prayer works, and counseling works too.
It does.
And so you work somewhere. In most cases, you have like employee benefits where they, have free counseling sessions through your HR. You can bill your insurance and pay a deductible. You can do counseling that way. And because you might be dealing with depression, you could be dealing with anxiety, you could be dealing with sexual abuse, you could be dealing with all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And no other person is going to fix that for you. You got to do that work yourself. And you got to get in a place where you can do that work and not just talk to your friend or your pastor who may not be equipped to handle that conversation, but you got to get into a space where you can have those conversations and do that internal work.
Yeah.
Get the stuff that you're looking for. Because no other person, no person you date, no person whatever is going to be able to fix all that. They can help.
Yeah.
They can help. And they can hurt it too. So you don't want the person to hurt it to be in your life, but they can't be responsible for the fixing.
Also, I feel like it's a major responsibility of ours to take the stigma off. Like, because I think people feel like with your physical health, you don't think there's anything to be ashamed of fixing that. When it gets out of control, you're like, I've got to lose weight. I've got to get myself together. I've got to do this. And you're fine with like working out and doing all this other stuff. But it's for some reason, it's something so embarrassing about saying I have to go to counseling or I need a therapist, or it's like, it's important. Like wholeness is important. And I think wholeness is not just saying, my blood pressure's down and I lost weight. Wholeness is mentally, I'm fine. Emotionally, I'm okay. Even spiritually, I'm sound. Because the problem is, if you try to link yourself up with someone else, to me, this is what I always communicate to people, because I attract, for many reasons, people that are hurting and need healing and all of that stuff. I say to people now, before I didn't do that, I learned this recently. Before I would set myself on fire to keep somebody warm. Now I say, if you don't want to be alone with you, don't expect me to want to be alone with you. You have to be whole, and it's important.
Let me tell you, we got to do the work. We got to do the internal work.
Yeah.
And that stigma is there. And it's there for a reason. It's there because for the longest, all we had as a people was like religious outlets as a way to like.
Yeah, that's true.
And as a counselor who's been a counselor for a long time, when all these old theories are being created, they didn't create them with Black people in mind, And so we're in a position now where we have more room to take care of our mental health needs, our emotional needs, and our
Oh
well
yeah.
and become well in a more holistic way versus just like try to avoid diabetes or try to avoid high blood pressure.
Right.
And even when it comes to physical wellness, I got my juices and my smoothies and I do stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's changing, and it was either I eat this food that is not good for me until I get to the point I got to go to the doctor to not get
Yeah.
medication for it. Now it's like, okay, let me do more of my physical health. Let me eat more greens and fruits and less meat and less fried stuff because, again, things that are tied to the better parts of Black culture, like the movie Soul Food. It was all about eating and stuff like that, but the grandma died from eating the food they was eating.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
so
what is eating you? But you said something about it's not about what you're eating; it's what's eating you.
Not
That's
about
so huge.
Yeah.
That's
so
huge.
We're in a position now, like, and I'll say this, and we can, close on this, but for the longest, and it's still true, like you want to exceed your parents. You want to have more resources, more education, because you may have come from a situation where that wasn't it. So you want to afford yourself a nicer house, nicer cars, more income.
Yeah.
And yes, that's great. And we're also in a position to be more emotionally mature than people that came before us because we have the space to do so. Like for a lot of older people, that wasn't their society they lived in.
Yeah, that's very true.
We're in a society now where we have room for that. And so we can parent our kids accordingly, we can communicate to our partners accordingly, we can communicate to ourselves better because we have more resources in that area, more room in that area to have all these feelings. And so Black mental health, it matters. Therapy matters. We take, you can take the stigma off meditation and yoga because it's not like a devilish activity to go do some yoga or meditation. The Bible says meditate on these things day and night. Meditation's used, and so, it's not devilish to, have depression or anxiety or whatever. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes it's, life experiences or whatever. It's okay to have these conversations, and by having the conversations or going to counseling doesn't mean you need medication. And if you need medication, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world and you're not taking it and whatever has been told before. All that messaging, we're in the process of undoing. And the work is on us. And so when you're in a relationship and you're having these issues, let me look at my experiences. Let me look at, well, maybe, I function this way because of hurt that I've experienced, the trauma I've experienced. And like, I need to process through that versus like make it this other person's responsibility to not fix it because they're not equipped to do so. And
that's right.
So in these relationships, and relationship issues are there, dive into some of the hidden pieces of that to figure out your perspective, from their perspective. You can do couples counseling and then do individual counseling at the same time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be in a marriage to do couples therapy.
That's right.
Too. It don't have to be premarital counseling. You can do couples therapy and you're dating because you know what? We done both been married before. We both got kids. We got a lot of baggage. We both been hurt. You know what?
It's different.
New car smell wears off. You know what? We need to get somebody to help us deal with some of this stuff that's like in those blind spots that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
But when they get triggered, then it's like, boom. And so get some help, talk to somebody. And if the situation is bad, then get out.
Period.
Don't slow
That's the bottom line.
Gotta stay in it. I mean, that's sometimes we feel as people, as Black people, or in general, or however your personality set up, like you got to just deal with the suffering and the pain.
Yeah.
It's okay to get away from suffering and pain. Like my pastor says all the time when dealing with people is like, I can love you and not be close to you. And he'll say like, at the end of church, it'll be like the benediction. May the Lord watch between me and thee. He said,
Yeah.
you do the same thing with people in your life.
Wow.
Make the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one
Yeah.
from another.
Absent.
You're over
Yeah.
there and I'm over here.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I can forgive you and it ain't got nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
Go over there, I'll be over here, and may the Lord watch between me and thee.
Right. And because I cut you off, that does not mean I hate you. I love me.
So yeah, and that can be family.
Period. Yeah.
So yeah, well, cool. That's all I got. I know I had a soapbox there for a moment, but people need to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Y'all know I always end with, if God is for you, that is way more than a whole world against you. Talk next time.